This show contains profanity, advice you should never follow, humor that you might not enjoy. The names have been changed to protect the guilty. Do not try this at home.
Greetings, Yellow Blazers, Blue Blazers, Bill Bryson lovers, Bill Bryson haters, world travelers,
Punchliners.
Puss podcast. My name is Pox Holiday, and sitting across from me,
Puss and Boots.
Did you hear that? That little break in the action right there? Well, my computer messed up, and so now we have hundreds of little breaks, ranging anywhere from like just a moment like that one to 10 seconds of silence throughout the entire intro that Puss and I recorded for this episode. Unfortunately for you guys, Puss and I were fucking hilarious. All that comedy lost forever. But luckily on this episode, we have a real professional comedian to make up for the lost comedy of this episode. I had an opportunity to interview Tom Rhodes, who's been a stand-up comedian for 30 years now. He had a show in 96, 97 called The Mr. Rhodes Show on NBC. At one point in time, he had a show in the early 2000s called The Kevin Masters Show, starring Tom Rhodes, which was actually on Dutch television. After his stint doing that, he wound up hosting a Dutch travel show. He's also a travel writer for the Huffington Post. He hosts the Tom Rhodes Radio podcast, and you might be wondering why we have a stand-up comedian on this week's episode. Tom Rhodes doesn't actually have a house. He travels the world doing comedy. He might spend a month in Australia, or he might just spend a few weeks in Europe, but he bounces around, and I thought that he was, you'll hear why I thought he would be a really good guest at the beginning of the interview. But I'm sure you guys are going to really enjoy it. Okay, I think I've done enough introduction. So ladies and gentlemen, he's a Capricorn, and his favorite color is blue, Mr. Tom Rhodes.
Karate kick, baby.
Rock and roll.
I was going to start it off with you. And also, if you see me look at my phone, I'm not texting. I just keep all my notes on it.
I can dig it.
Didn't want you to think I'm like, yeah.
Fucking guy's looking at his phone.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things that kind of made me think of it is there's a philosophy with Thru-Hikers called hike your own hike, where people start getting in like, no, you got the wrong tent, man. You got the wrong this, you got the wrong that. It's like, dude, fucking hike your own hike. If it works for me, it works for me. And so if there is a single fucking comedian that has a hike your own hike philosophy, it's you. Because I've listened to a lot of interviews with you, everything from Joe Rogan to, two of my favorites are you and Ari Shaffir. One on yours and one on his. I think you spend about half the entire time of him going, so wait, you don't have a house?
Him saying that to me.
Yeah, saying that to you. Like, wait, you don't have a house? And then later on, to be like, really, seriously, no house?
Yeah.
And so, if there's anybody that can understand that, it would be our listeners. Because a lot of them
are homeless.
Yeah, they live in their fucking backs. And they just enjoy that kind of thing. And so, I just kind of, you talk in your opening about, from here to here, from the peaks of Machu Picchu, and that kind of thing. And so, I'm not really worried about whether or not you hike the trail, or you've hiked and done backpacking. It's just kind of more the adventurous side of it. So does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, sure.
As far as that goes, what drove you to just say, fuck it, I'm putting all my I'm selling everything, and I'm going to get into, get back and just stay on the road?
It was a natural progression, I guess, because I'd moved to Amsterdam for 5 years, and that was kind of the first time I threw everything into storage and just said, fuck it. Mm-hmm. And after I moved back from Amsterdam, I moved to Los Angeles for 2 years, got everything out of storage. And then I looked around and pretty much assessed what I called my empire of $20 purchases. Because the only things that really meant anything to me were my books and my CD collection. And those all cost about $20 each. I was in LA, I was living in an apartment, I wasn't crazy about LA, and I wasn't there half the time. So I was paying rent on a place I wasn't crazy about, and I really minimized everything. Got rid of my furniture, gave things to comedians that I knew needed things. Like I knew one guy needed a TV, gave him a TV, knew another guy needed a coffee table. And I just really reduced things to the bare minimum of family photos and things from my career and my book collection. I still have the CDs, even though, you don't really need CDs anymore.
I tried to give away a CD to somebody the other day, and they were like, what am I going to do with it?
Right. I still have a massive vinyl collection. I love vinyl.
Me too.
So I got a really smaller storage unit and threw everything in it.
Right.
And, it was basically, I got into these worldwide circuits doing comedy. And so I'd be in Europe for a month or two, Australia for a month. And, I just decided I didn't need to live anywhere.
Right.
And that when I had time off, I would just go somewhere exotic and stay in a hotel room.
So, yeah.
Or rent an apartment.
Cut out the middleman. So let's say when you do come back, like I've heard you talk about before, like a couple of years ago, you talked about how you wanted to kind of slow down the amount of touring you were doing and kind of focus on, you had to do another hour. We had to work on another hour, and that kind of thing. So when you do come back, for hikers, for us, when we come back out of being stinky for a while, our big thing is, I know for me, cotton clothing. Because you're wearing synthetic clothing to, keep the moisture wicked away from you, that kind of thing.
Right.
You wind up being funky, but man, there's nothing like a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. So when you come back to your massive amount of $20 purchases, A, what are the first things you go for, and then B, when you come back to America, what did you miss when you were away that you want to come back to?
Well, when I go to my storage unit, I'm dumping shit in there.
Right.
I'm not really getting stuff out. I've got at my mom's house in Florida, I've got some winter coats and stuff. That's the trickiest part for me, is going from a winter climate to a summer climate and being able to drop the coats, get summer stuff. But I've got it pretty worked out. And I'm constantly mailing boxes back to myself. Just got back from Europe. I spent January and February in Europe, and then I flew back to Los Angeles. So then I got to my storage unit's in Los Angeles, so I got to go there and I dumped all my winter shit. And what did I miss?
Yeah, is there anything like?
I tell you, when I lived in Europe, the one thing I missed about the United States was a mini mall where you can get shit done. Because like in Europe, you got to go all over town. You got to go to the dry cleaner, you go to wherever, and in the States, man, as much of a neon money trap as some of them are, there's nothing like a mini mall where you can mail a box, pick up some pool supplies, whatever.
Yeah, you're not that far off from what people do that do long distance hiking do, except we do the opposite. We send boxes to ourselves. You can send them to a mailbox, a post office, courtesy of yourself. And when you show up, there's a food you like from home. Like Mom sent all your stuff. They sent the newspaper clippings and that kind of thing.
Cool.
So you can do that exact same thing.
Where, out to the woods to send us to Ranger Tower 8?
Just like let's say there's a town called Damascus, Virginia. And it's a really big place that we're going to be going next month. They have a festival every year, but there's a post office in Damascus, Virginia, and the trail goes through that town.
Oh.
So you can just stop off. A lot of times, I know you did a lot of hitchhiking back in your days, your early days back when you didn't have a car and you were doing a lot of touring and that kind of thing. Hitchhiking is huge with us because it's like, okay, I've gone all this distance, and then it's like, shit, my box of shit is 12 miles down in, bumblefuck Massachusetts. So we're not really that big of a difference in that way, except you're going to much nicer places. Ours is just chock full of humidity.
Well, I call it the separation of the rocket boosters. I grew up in Florida with the space program.
Oh, yeah.
And when the space shuttle goes up, it's got those big rocket boosters on the side, and right before it breaks to the atmosphere, the rocket boosters fall away. So, like, when I mail shit back to myself, I always call it the separation of the rocket boosters. And, make things more aerodynamic for travel.
My next one has a prop. All right. So I always try and tie all my questions back into stuff. And I was trying to think of, I'm sure you have exotic food back that you really enjoy. And then I was trying to think about, okay, well, there's that. And then there are the what do you miss back home kind of things. So I was on my way down here. Snickers are a staple of thru-hikers. And that one, I've never seen it before. Not that I've done a lot of searching for Snickers. But right at the checkout line, it was like, new! And it was the Rockin' Road. And I was like, well, Rhodes, I know they're spelled differently. And so I was like, all right, two things. One, what food do you miss back home? And then also, what foods do you enjoy when you go abroad?
I've kind of lost touch of the concept of home. I grew up in Florida. My family's in Florida. But, when I go there, I don't really I mean, I feel like I'm visiting my family. I don't have that connection like I used to. I mean, I left there when I was 20, 21. And, you know, I mean, I grew up, Florida in the South has got barbecue. I mean, I used to love barbecue. I don't eat much of it anymore. But I love food. I know great food everywhere. And every city's got different things. And I went to Istanbul, Turkey last year. And I went to, they got the Grand Bazaar. And then there's the Spice Market. And the Spice Market was beautiful for, like, photos. I thought Turkey was a little bit of a bore. And if you ever go there, skip the whirling dervishes. Total ripoff.
Okay.
It was some college students that were... It wasn't the Zen spiritual religious experience that the Sufi sect of... they were liberal, artistic Muslims. They kind of don't exist anymore. But that's what they were. And they spun because they, you know, I guess they didn't have drugs.
Oh, yeah, yes.
And so they wanted to get kind of dizzy and into the, you know, meditative state, get closer to God. That was a waste of time. But at the Spice Market, it was really beautiful for photos. It looked like National Geographic and just all these things. And I was taking some pictures, and then the guy goes, you know, hey, you know, can I help you? And I thought, well, fuck, I better buy something because I'm, you know, taking all these photos and videos and stuff. And the guy starts showing me stuff, and I'm looking at his spices, and there was, I bought some salad spice, which is really, really good stuff. And then there was this chicken spice. The guy let me smell these spices, and it smelled fantastic. It was kind of like a saffron, between saffron and burgundy looking color. And I don't know how much a kilo is. So and it was like 3 euros or 4 euros for like a kilo. And I go, yeah, give me a kilo. Yeah. And then the guy takes this big scooper and he's dumping it into this massive plastic bag. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't need that much. And then, you know, it turns out a kilo is a lot.
Yeah.
It shows you I don't deal drugs because I had no idea how much a kilo was. But that chicken spice is fantastic.
And you got it till the end of time.
And I wish I would have bought more of it because it's great on vegetables. It's great on everything. And I still have a little bit of it left. Whenever my wife and I love to cook, and rarely we will be in a place like some hotels they put you in will be like a Marriott town suite or whatever, and you got a kitchen, and this spice is amazing.
Nice.
So that's good. You know, there's great food everywhere. Asia's great. Malaysia, Jesus Christ. In Singapore, they do chili crab, which is a little sweet. And then they do pepper crab, which is more spicy. And it's really sloppy and nasty to eat.
Is it like hot, like southeastern hot would be, or is it
no? It's kind of like this. It's like got this brown sauce on it, which is like this pepper sauce. Right. But it really tastes kind of spicy, not like a Tabasco Cholula spice, but just kind of a. But it's hot. It's spicy. Yeah. It's delicious. Nice. And I would fly to Singapore just to go eat this crab. Crab is one of my favorite things. Yeah. I love crab.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always have time and money to eat some crab.
I kind of glossed right over. I mean, you did grow up around the swamps of Florida and that kind of thing. Did you do much outdoor stuff when you were a kid?
Yeah, I think the cool thing in Florida, you know, growing up is we learned boating safety.
Ah, yeah.
In 8th grade. That was like something that they taught everybody.
Holy shit.
You know, and you learn starboard and, you know, and you learn, you know, not to be foolish on a boat. And I love boats. Boats is, I love small boats. I love big boats. I love going on boats. And I think that's from growing up in Florida. And I don't like any monkey business on a boat. If somebody takes me out and they're driving erratically or they're drinking too much, you know, that's it. I'm done.
I completely understand.
I don't like any chumpy behavior on a boat. But I love to water ski. You know, I always got a kick out of airboats.
Yeah.
Done that in the Everglades a few times.
Yeah.
And out going towards Coco, there's some smaller ones.
No, have you been to the peaks of Machu Picchu?
I have been to the peaks of Machu Picchu. And I think it's funny that you would have me on a outdoorsy hiking program because I am probably one of the least outdoorsy people ever. My family went camping once when we were kids, and we didn't like it. The raccoons came and ate all our food.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then there was once I camped out in Yosemite Park when I moved to San Francisco years ago with this French woman that I lived with. And then it said, don't have food in the tents because of bears. And so, we're like, of course, this French woman brought like smelly cheeses and shit. And I'm in fear of my life the whole time. But I went to Machu Picchu in Peru, one of my favorite countries I've ever been to. There's a lot of poverty. You have to be very aware of, people trying to rip you off, like anywhere. Mm-hmm. But the Inca Trail, you can do either the 4-day hike or the 2-day hike. And we did the 2-day hike. And you can have these porters, these young Peruvian kids, for whatever, like $5-10 a day. They'll carry your luggage up, and you have a little team of them. It's kind of like, I've done it in Asia a few times where, like, you think, oh man, I'm going to do the real, the backpacker way to do things. But sometimes the rich white guy way is a much better way to do things. And it doesn't even cost that much money. I mean, I was there filming for a Dutch travel television show. So we had a film crew and everything. But these guys also brought tents, and they also brought food. So we camped out. It took 2 days to hike up the trail. And these guys, they pitched the tents, they made the food. It was like spaghetti. Real basic. That was cool because I knew the end result was going to be Machu Picchu, where I wanted to go my whole life. And then only if you're camping and you're doing the trail hike, it's I think it's called the Sun Gate. You want to be there at sunrise. And it's kind of on this cliff overlooking Machu Picchu. And you get up there and it's all right at sunrise, and the clouds are covering it. Mm-hmm. And then as the sun burns off the clouds, it kind of opens like a curtain on a theater. Oh, wow. And Machu Picchu is revealed. And then it's like, that scene in Wizard of Oz, and they're running through the field. They're trying to get to the Emerald City. I mean, then you got like another mile to hike before you get there, and it's great.
You asked Arj Barker a question one time, another international comedian. You asked him a question one time, and he had trouble answering it. And I thought, well, this would be the perfect person to ask. What have you gotten the most from your world travel?
A lot of experience, a lot of jokes and stories from experience. I'm working on a book now. I've been working on a book for the last couple years. The Huffington Post asked me to be a travel writer, so I wrote like 4 or 5 stories for Huffington Post. One of them was in the top 10 travel stories of that year. This story about me getting into a fight in Ireland on my honeymoon and breaking a finger. Someone had jumped a friend of mine. I wasn't being aggressive. I was helping a friend who was in trouble. So I was putting a lot of effort into these stories, and then I thought I should be putting this much effort into my own book. And I've been working on it for a few years. And it's my best story is traveling the world as a comedian and things like that. I've had a lot of, I was maced in Paris.
Oh, really?
The very first time I ever went to Paris.
Oh, wow.
Some guys tried to mug me. They don't have guns there. So I heard they mace you and then they beat you up and they try and get you down. They take your money.
Yeah.
Or whatever, but I broke free. I got away. I almost drowned in Thailand in the PP Islands. I had a late night talk show in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
I fell in love with a Dutch girl, moved there for her, and then the relationship didn't work out, and I got this late night talk show. I've been to every continent except for Antarctica and Africa. I've made love to a lot of ethnic foreign women, and not the kind you pay for. I've had wonderful relationships with women all over the world. You know, Jesus, there was a Palestinian girl who lived in Barcelona who was a genius. She lives in Germany now. You know, God, my wife is Indian. She's from Holland.
She's very nice.
Yeah, she's a wonderful woman. And so, I mean, just invaluable life experience. And I think the answer to the question is, I mean, I got the most interesting nucleus, the core of my book, and it's my, you know, it's my life, it's my journey.
Absolutely.
I'm a traveler. I mean, my last name is Rhodes, for fuck's sake. I mean, you know. I swam naked at the entrance of Rhodes Harbor. I went to the island of Rhodes in Greece.
Gotcha.
It's where the Colossus of Rhodes once stood.
Oh.
When I lived in Amsterdam, I took a little trip down there. I was walking by a travel agency, and they had like it was like 500 euros for a week in a hotel plus the plane ticket. Oh, what the hell? And I flew down there, and I was by myself, just checking out the island. And the entrance of Rhodes Harbor, where the Colossus of Rhodes once stood, I swam. I had to wait until like 3 o'clock in the morning when these teenagers on mopeds finally fucking left. And I'd already had a few beers when I got there, and I brought a 6-pack with me.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I had to sit there for like an hour or two waiting for everybody to leave, and the place was completely empty. And, you know, it was really hot. It's Greece. It was summer. So I just slipped off my shorts and swam. It was not that far. I just went back there and saw the distance wasn't that far. And I'm not that strong of a swimmer. So going, you know, in the Aegean Sea, Jesus Christ, it's this, like, silver, cobalt, blue combination, even at night with the moon shining on it. Yeah. And going across was no problem, but coming back, I had to doggy paddle, and I actually thought this might be my Jeff Bunkley drowning in the Mississippi River moment, but I made it. And I mean, I did it. I had to swim naked where the Colossus of Rhodes once stood because I thought maybe it would give me some superpowers, like, you know, make my jokes funnier, make my dick bigger, or something, right. You know. It just had spiritual significance for me.
One travel question I have, it's a guilty question, just as a fan of your podcast. When you visited Kim.com and you left, did you get strip searched? He made it sound like you were gonna. Yeah, it sound like bite down on this. They're gonna get the rubber glove out.
No, but you know, maybe the next time I go there, because I went straight to the airport from his place. No, I think he's exaggerating a little bit. I think he's actually more revered and loved in New Zealand than he knows.
Yeah,
and that's what I told him on when I interviewed him. The guy, this New Zealand comedian who I made really good friends with, and he drove me to Kim.com's house. Okay. And he was such a good guy. He sat in the... Ewan Gilmore is the man's name. He sat in the car and let him while I go in. I was like, nah, man, come on in. And he came in, and we were with his, like, 80-year-old mother before we went. And I was just joking around with her, and I go, do you have any questions for Kim.com you want me to ask him? And she goes... You tell him I didn't like what those bastards did to him, meaning the New Zealand government, and the army raiding his house and everything. And I think he's kind of like a folk hero there. I mean, he was the first one to give money to Christchurch after the earthquake. He raises money for local schools. He'll every couple of months they'll do private tours where people of his mansion where people pay. The guy does a lot for the community, and he's a really sweet guy. I mean, he's. You know, it's not, he didn't endanger any lives. You know, I always say, you know, a couple of copies of Sister Act 2, the right money didn't go in certain Hollywood pockets, you know, and they're persecuting the guy.
Another comedy geek question. What was your first, I know your father took you to your first comedy. My father did similar stuff. He took me to movies way early. I remember whenever they put Caddyshack 2 out, they reissued Caddyshack in the theaters. So my dad's like, let's go see that. So I mean, he took me to a lot of movies when I was younger like that, like Pee-wee's Big Adventure when you're like 5. That's mind opening. But what was your first?
I took my sister to see bachelor party with Tom Hanks.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like 10.
She probably remembers that.
She loved it.
What was your first comedy album?
First comedy album?
Yeah, the first one you bought on your own.
The first one I bought on my own, because my dad he had all the prior.
Right.
And my dad, he had a lot of Cosby. And my dad had Bob Newhart, man. I love Bob Newhart. Those Bob Newhart records used to kill me.
One-sided phone conversations. They will murder you. Yes,
the Sir Walter Raleigh calling the king in England, telling him about tobacco.
The night bellman whenever
the night
King
watchman.
Kong...
Yeah, that's the best. The night watchman at the Empire State Building when King Kong climbs on.
About the 13th floor, sir.
Yes, sir. I did try and get him down. I took a broom handle and poked him in the toe. It didn't seem to be having any effect on him, and neither did the fighter planes shooting bullets at him. But the first one I ever bought would have had to have been Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah.
I was 14, and it was. I just saw it in a truck stop driving up here the other day, and it made me smile because it's this light blue color, and there's Rodney's like hanging from I guess it's on the back. There's a photo of him hanging from a diving board, and some kid's like smashing his fingers. That's on the back side. On the front, he's got the suit. And everything. But I was a huge Rodney fan.
Yeah.
So I'd say Rodney, and then Steve Martin.
Yeah.
You know, those were probably the first ones I ever bought. Okay, let's talk about Blind Melon for a second.
Let's do.
They were from where in North Carolina? They were from. They had done something. They got a record contract. I remember their story was really cool, and they had a house somewhere in North Carolina.
I think it was around Chapel Hill, possibly.
Somewhere around Chapel Hill, maybe.
Yeah.
And they had a house that they rented, and they just worked on songs and sat on the porch, playing music, and they made that album, which is one of my favorite albums of all time.
Yeah.
And then they got all popular, and I saw them in San Francisco. I knew every word of that album, every song, and it was before they had really hit. And they played this little club in San Francisco, and I went with Brian Posehn, and Posehn and I both had loved that album. And there was might be 30 people.
Wow.
And I had my beer on the stage, and I could look at the set list and see, and people are handing Shannon Hune pipes full of weed, and he's smoking it. And he was very conversational. He was a really lovable kid. He kind of reminded me of Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah.
He was very Mitch Hedberg, and just this kind of this innocent, druggy, fucking childlike innocence that he had. You guys like the Grateful Dead, man? And he's talking about that. And then I saw him 1 year later after the band had hit, and he was a fucking mess. He was embarrassing. He was so sloppy and on heroin and couldn't sing the songs. But when I saw him to that small audience, it sounded they were a tight band then. And then when I saw him a year later, you could see the other band members were annoyed that the guy couldn't fucking stand up.
Can we talk Mitch Hedberg for 1 second?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Your story, which is a horrible story for you, but it is funny in the end. Your story about when you were trying to get back with the Amsterdam, the girl you fell in love with in Amsterdam, when you guys had broken up and you're still fucking around, and then you've spilled your heart to her, and she's like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
I was actually listening to it. I was re-listening to that part at work the other night, and
where did you hear that, on Rogan or something?
It might have been on Rogan, or it might have been the Joe Rogan one, and you talk about you're going down the street you're not supposed to go down on a bike in Amsterdam. And the best part, you talk about, you're like, I was pedaling away. You were pedaling mad. And that just, all it made me think of, back to Hedberg and back to camping, was it's the worst place in the world to get in a fight with your girlfriend's in a tent.
Oh, where he slams the flap. Yeah.
I laughed to myself and pulled out my phone. I was like, pedaling equals zip zip, fuck you.
I got into an argument with a girlfriend inside of a tent. That's a bad place for an argument, because I tried to walk out and slam the flap. How are you supposed to express your anger in this situation? Zipper it up really quick. fuck you.
But okay, so that's my Mitch Hedberg rant there for a while. That's still my biggest regret. Friends of mine were like, hey, we're going to go see Mitch Hedberg. And I didn't have money. And I literally lived, when I lived in downtown Raleigh, I lived 5 blocks from Goodnights. And I just I never went there. I went there one time.
Wow, you're kidding. I used to, that and here the Atlanta Punchline were the first 2 A rooms that I got in with, because I started out on the Southern Circuits.
Right.
And I played every town that ends in Ville or Borough.
Yeah.
The comedy zones were out of Charlotte.
Yeah.
And they had gigs in every Holiday Inn lounge everywhere in the South. It was tons of work, and it was just loads of one-nighters. But that's, the Appalachian Trail, I went all around there.
Yeah.
Driving and
yeah.
Never hiked it, but, God, Boone, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Great college town. Loved Boone. Jesus Christ, I had sex with some wonderful
hippies.
Hippie girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just might have been once, but
yeah.
Anyway, but Charlie Goodnights was one of the first place I got in with, like here, and I emceed first, and then I middled for a long time, and there was one time. The Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus was in town, and a bunch of the performers had come to the show.
This is in Raleigh.
Yeah,
I know.
And they had a condo that the comedians stayed at. Yeah. And so we invited them all back to the condo. It was like a, townhouse thing where like NC State people stayed, and that's where the condo was. And so we invited all these waitresses and people that worked at the club, which were like, a lot of NC State students, and it was cool to see, like, Romanian trapeze artists trying to, like, pick up, young, nubile North Carolinian girls and midgets walking around. It was an epic friggin' party. And then that place, I hadn't played there in a long time. And Helium, which is a great club in Philadelphia, and there's one in Portland also that I love. They just bought the place.
I heard, yeah.
So, fortunately, now... Yeah. They'll be, because that Charlie Goodnights was one of the best clubs in the country. Yeah. Late 80s, early 90s. When I was playing there, man, and it was always the best headliners in the business. Yeah. And I think they kind of, for like a 10, 15-year period, just started bringing in a lot of road hacks. Stuff.
Yeah, it was not like there was just no reason to go there for a long time. But it's just like the Punchline. When you go there, the walls are covered. I mean, from Leno to Chappelle. They were all there, but they weren't there recently, Right. And then I heard, I just recently heard that Helium bought them out, and whatnot. Yeah, the only person I ever saw there, somebody bought me a ticket, took me there. She took me to dinner upstairs at the fancy ass restaurant that Charlie Goodnights had. Pauly Shore was there, and he spent most of his time yelling at the audience. All right, so now I'll get back to what I was going to say and let you get going here. The best piece of travel advice you were ever given?
Best travel advice I was ever given? I don't know. I think most things I learned on my own. Like, you hear things like buy plane tickets on Mondays or Wednesdays and that kind of stuff. I stopped using Orbitz, and I go directly to the airline sites and buy from the airline sites. Because when you use Orbitz and those other things, you're always going to be in group 4 or 5 on boarding. If you go through the airline, and you build up the points and you stay loyal, you're always going to be in zone 1 or 2 when you're boarding.
Makes sense.
So that's the trick, and it's worth it to spend the extra money to go to the airline and get. I like window seats myself. I like to look out on this beautiful blue marble earth that we live on. But you don't. A lot of times, like Orbitz, I'd always have a fucking middle seat, and it's like I'm a headliner. I'm flying to go do a gig, and I'm getting paid a lot of money. Why? Because I wanted to save $30, $40.
Right.
And fuck that. Spend the extra money. Get the seat you want. Build up the points. I hate United. United sucks. American and Delta are the best American airlines. But the big thing for me is I don't. I'm on the road every week. I don't know when I can do laundry. Mm-hmm. So for me, socks and underwear is the most important thing. And I always have at least 20 pairs of underwear and 20 pairs of socks. Like, I calculated, like, I've been here for a week. I got a flight in Minneapolis. Next week, I'm not going to be able to do laundry. Mm-hmm. But I've still got, like 14 fresh pairs of socks and underwear.
So Mom always said, make sure you have clean underwear.
So I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, Tom, I can't thank you enough. And
what kind of name is Pox?
Well, what happened to me was everybody on the trail actually goes by a trail name. Mm. You don't really usually go by your real name. For me, I had set a date for the Appalachian when I was going to hike. At the age of 21, I was getting ready to go. I was going to leave March 1st. And then the week before that, I started getting sick, started scratching my chest, started, kind of getting weird, and then I started noticing these bumps all over I got the chicken pox at age 21. Wow. I'd never had it before. And so I had moved all my worldly possessions into my parents' house, into my childhood bedroom. I literally had my mattress on the floor, all my stuff around me in a room, and all I had was one TV and a VHS. This is, in the 90s, so I had a VHS, and I had two movies. I had Braveheart, and I had Tombstone, thank you. I had Tombstone in there, and I just would, sitting there, you've memorized movies.
I have not yet begun to defile myself.
One for the each of you. So I started quoting it, because that's all I had in my life for those two movies, and so then finally, whenever I started the trail 2 weeks after conquering chickenpox, people had decided, well, your name is Pox. I'm like, all right. And then one day I started in on a line of Doc Holliday lines, and it became, well, aren't you just a regular Pox Holiday? And I was like, it worked perfectly. But unfortunately, I spelled it wrong. He spelled it with two L's. I spelled it with one. Pre-internet, so, I'll live. But yeah, so I've just kind of kept that. But I can't thank you enough.
Hey, brother, my pleasure, man. Perfect. Thanks for inviting me on, and thanks for the Snickers.
Hey, no problem.
Rich Horse. Maybe I'll see you on the Machu Picchu Inca Highway.
So that was pretty awesome. Tom Rhodes is a pretty cool guy. Travels the world, does all kinds of cool shit that we all wish we could do. Hey, if you want to check out more of Tom Rhodes, like I said before, check out his podcast. He interviews people that he meets on his travels. It's called Tom Rhodes Radio. Tom's last name is spelled Rhodes. You can also find the first episode, the pilot episode of Mr. Rhodes, Tom's 1996 series, it's the full thing's on YouTube. If you want to follow Tom on Twitter, it's @_Tom Rhodes, and also TomRhodes.net is his website. TomRhodes.com, I believe, is I think he's a realtor or something. Okay, so if this is your first time listening to our podcast, understand this is not the norm. We don't normally have famous people. We also normally aren't interviewing with one microphone. And also, you don't normally hear my annoying-ass voice all the time. I have a co-host named Puss in Boots. If you like us, if you like laughing, check out episode 4. It's called LOL. If you make it through that one, you're going to like us. If you're looking for inspiration, check out episode 12 with Hawkeye. That man has hiked over 17,000 miles of long trails, and he has some really cool stories. Okay, so if you want to find us, we're poxandpuss.com or @poxandpuss on Twitter. We're also @poxandpuss on Instagram. If you want to email us, poxandpuss@gmail.com. Also, if you're a hiker and you're going to be in Damascus for Trail Days this year, please, please, please come to our first annual Hiker Prom. It's going to be held at the Damascus Brewery, just a little bit west of downtown. Okay, I think I've done enough talking. Hope you guys enjoyed everything, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. All right, bye-bye.
Always have time and money to eat some crab.